one of the things I noticed quite quickly was that if people scheduled their time so they took more vacations, the number of hours they could work productively actually went up, not down. So you can get the balance right, but it's not a simple thing to do. But so it isn't that you're only going to find engagement in sheer physical productive activity. There's lots of places where you can be engaged. You can be engaged in art, you can be engaged in literature, you can be engaged in relationships, you can be engaged in your children. Like, there's no shortage of places of meaning. But you have to interact with those places of meaning properly. And you have to organize the multiple places where you derive meaning in a manner that's sustaining to all of them. And that's when you've got your frame right. But getting your frame right isn't enough. Because you have to get your frame right in a way that allows you to update your frame as you continue moving forward with it. And I do believe, because I do believe that the world that we're adapted to as biological organisms is the world where reality is information. I believe that when your nervous system signals to you that all's well, it's true. You're in the right place at the right time. You're bearing exactly the right amount of load. And the right amount of load is enough to keep you taut and ready and improving. And when you slip into that slot, I think all of the existential problems that arise to push people towards nihilism and hopelessness, or sometimes towards totalitarianism and rigidity, that problem just goes away. And it's because you solved it. It's not because it's not a problem. It's a bloody problem. But that doesn't mean that, because one of the things that modern people do is they conceptualize themselves as defeated a priori. That the fact that life is tragic and that you're not all you could be and that everything will come to an end means that you're not, by definition, you're not up to the task. It's like, that's by no means obvious, man. People are tough. Like, they're so tough, it's unbelievable. Well, you see that on YouTube, would you? Because I look at YouTube now and then and feel terrible about it. One of the things I do like looking at are the extreme sports that people engage in, and I mean, people can do unbelievable things. They're completely off their rocker, They can do things with their bodies that you just can't possibly imagine. I was looking, for example, there was a video that went around a while ago about, it was a videotape of the woman who won the 1956 hurdling. You bounce off one of those horses for gymnastics. And so she did her winning routine, and was videotaped, and then the next videotape was of the person who won the gold in the Olympics at the last Olympics. And it was like, the first woman did this really cool roll off the horse. It was quite spectacular. It's like the second one was like 20 feet in the air with 4 flips, end over end, vertically. It wasn't like they weren't even the same creatures. One looked like some kind of like android kangaroo, and the other looked like a pretty competent gym teacher. I mean, God only knows what the limits of human ability are, but we certainly haven't touched them. And you guys, most of you, have no idea what you'd be capable of if you really got your acts together, when you were a force. Because another thing you might think about is, maybe the existential misery that you experience in your life is directly proportional to the amount of time you waste. Because if the dragon guards a treasure, and your job is to get the damn treasure, and you need it. It's not optional. Without the treasure, you don't have the riches necessary to live. All the time you're wasting is time that you're not spent in the treasure room, fundamentally. And so, if you're not spending all your time in the treasure room, you can't complain about being poor. So it's a good thing to think about, because and this is what makes it optimistic. It's possible that if you utilize what was in front of you, and so that would be the ground of being, let's say, if you utilize that would be enough. Or maybe you could get even really lucky, and if you utilized it properly, it wouldn't just be enough, it would be more than enough, So you could go from saying, well, it's okay to be a limited and mortal being, to saying, hey, this is a pretty damn good deal, and if I could, I'd sign on for it again. And that was actually Nietzsche's idea of the eternal return. So when he was trying to figure out what people should do as a consequence of the collapse of the ethical systems that constituted classical religious belief, he conjured up the idea of the eternal return, and it was roughly this. You should live in such a way so that if you had to repeat what you were doing forever into infinity, you would say yes to that. And that's an idea like Piaget's equilibrated state, except obviously it's stretched into huge expanses of time. You know, that's a high-level thing to aim at, but, you know, so here's another example. Like, I've seen people who get stuck in very bureaucratic organizations, you know, and they just get bloody well tortured to death by them because it's mindless tyranny, stupid rules, and on arbitrary decisions, and counterproductive management advice, and jealousy, and punishment for doing well, and, you know, everything you can do to possibly set up a situation where the person who's got the job is just crushed by it, that people won't say anything. It's like, well, what would happen if you said something like, well, why do you want me to do this? It looks stupid. And they might be thinking, oh, I could have thought it was stupid too, you know, but someone else told me to do it. Highly probable that they would be thinking that. It's like, what happens if you just refuse to do stupid, useless, meaningless things? It's like, that's a rule. I don't do stupid, useless, meaningless. Well, you know, one of the things that happens in corporations, and I've seen this happen many times, is that the corporation gets, it's like an elephant that gets loaded with intestinal parasites. And I mean that as a biological analogy, I really do. Because a corporation is a body, in some sense, that has a tremendous amount of built-in value. And what can happen as the corporation develops is it gets full of people who just pull out the value. They don't actually do anything. They rape the brand is what they do. Because the brand has value, you know. Like the Disney brand has value because it's associated with quality. You know, and if you wanted to destroy that, you'd take over the company and you'd put out Snow White 2 and Snow White 3 and Snow White 5 and Snow White 12 and everybody would buy it until like Snow White 20 when they wouldn't trust you anymore, and then you've sucked all the value out of the company and it's dead. You know, or you get people who come into the corporation and all they want to do is maneuver up to the top. They don't give a damn about what the thing is supposed to be producing, or about how they're structuring their relationships with other people, or about anything that has to do with the truth. They use language instrumentally to reach their goals. And you get enough people like that in your company, and it's like, it's dead. It's gone. And that happens to companies all the time, because they don't last, right? This is why Marx was wrong. You know, he said, power and money accumulate in the hands of fewer and fewer people. What he didn't say is it's always different people. You know, it's like there's a 1%, but it's not the same people. You know, most family fortunes don't last 3 generations, and neither do most large companies. So there's a lot of dynamic turnover. But you know, you guys are going to be working in companies, a lot of you, at least at some point, at pretty damn significant levels. And even at an entry level, you have more power than you think. You know, it is not necessary to do things you know are stupid and meaningless. And if the situation that you're in is demanding that, then you might ask yourself, maybe I should be somewhere else. And then you might say, well, I can't be. And what I would say to that is, prepare yourself to be. Like if you're going to go into a company and you want to live ethically, you need an escape strategy. And you need to have that along with you all the time. So you need an updated resume, and you need to be keeping your damn eye on the job market so that you can see where the other opportunities lie for you, and so you're not afraid to pursue them. You know, so you got to hone your interview skills. You got to keep your damn resume polished up. You got to make sure you have a broad social network, and you have to do it consciously. And so that if some dingbat tells you to do something counterproductive, meaningless, and we'll push it one step farther, clearly unethical, you can say no. And you can mean it, because no means I'm not doing that. And if you push me, we'll either have a war or I'll go somewhere else. It's like, that's what no means. That's what it means. It means I'm not doing this. And you can't say no till you have an alternative, right? You have to set yourself up so that no doesn't kill you, because obviously then you won't say it. And these are important things to consider, because the actions that you take at the level of your individual career are going to have far more impact on the ethics and the productivity of the place that you work than you can imagine, especially if you're someone who's straight and sees what's right in front of their face. Because those are the people that keep the damn companies running. And there's not necessarily that many of them. You know, the Price's Law rule is that square root of the number of people who are doing a job do half the work. So you could say that in a company of 1,000 people, 30 people are doing half the work. You know, and you could be one of them. And then if you are one of them, you can bloody well say no. Because they actually need you. And so your loss can be a catastrophe. And that's what you want to aim for. It's like you want to be the person whose loss would be a catastrophe. Because then you've got some power. And then you can bargain. And then you don't have to do stupid, useless, crooked things. And you'll have a much better life if you don't have to do those things.